You asked what the first deal I was. It was like a 900 square foot deal in a tiny little office building. But the client that I represented has ended up being like a lifelong friend. So, I mean, it's crazy the relationships that you make and how quickly it can go from 0 to 100.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
Doing great. I'm fine and dandy, sweet as candy. What about you, buddy? How's it going over there?
Wow, I like that a lot. I'm going to start using that with all my clients.
There you go.
That's awesome. No, I'm doing great. You know, the weather's nice today, but as we were talking offline a little bit, it's going to be tapering off to a little bit cooler tomorrow, but excited for springtime coming here. And, you know, we're also very excited for our interview today. We have Hanna Henley out of Dallas, Texas, here to talk a little bit about her story. And, you know, we're going to learn a little bit more about what she does on a day-to-day. So, Hanna, welcome.
Welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, no, and we're really excited to learn a little bit more about your backstory. Like we had said before, we have a pretty broad audience of individuals, especially primarily in the commercial real estate brokerage space. So I think your story and insights are going to share. You're going to gain a lot of insights from what you have to say. So one thing I'm kind of curious about, and obviously this is something we usually ask our guests when they first get started, is what tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Yeah. So I have been in the commercial real estate industry for about 3.5 years. But prior to that, I was in college. I went to Texas Tech. That's where Patrick Mahomes went. So, you know, that's kind of our claim to fame right now. But I went to Texas Tech. When I started off in college, I thought I was going to be a fashion major and move to New York and be some type of editor at some magazine. So I majored in fashion at Texas Tech. Well, I started my major in that. And then I realized that the job that I thought I was going to be getting with the fashion major likely wasn't what I actually wanted. So I realized I wanted a job that could provide uncapped income potential. So I transferred into the business school. I had to have some type of internship to graduate. So I got an internship at a commercial real estate firm. I actually ended up relatively liking it, but I bonded with a broker there. She offered me a job right out of college. It was the only job offer that I had, so I took it. And it's been a whirlwind ever since.
That's awesome. Well, 3.5 years in the business, so kudos to you. That's the same. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear your take on the jump into the commercial real estate, because, you know, not everyone, I mean, it's not a profession per se that people, unless they have someone in the business already, it's not something that most people think, oh yeah, let me jump into this space. And so, you know, I'm interested to hear your take on that. So
how I got into commercial real estate specifically.
Yeah, no, Jeff, did you have something you want to share or something?
No, I mean, I think we would love to hear about that, Hanna. Just exactly how you kind of got into it and how it went. Maybe a first of like the first deal or something. That would be great to hear.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So I got into the industry in October of 2019. So right before COVID hit. I had gotten the internship because I had a family member that was in the industry, and they were like, just get an internship at this company. Like, you might as well. So that's how I got segued into commercial real estate to start with. But COVID happened. It was a lot. You know, I was an office tenant rep broker, and now everybody was saying office space was dead. So I was like, oh no, what are we going to do? But I used that time to just read a lot. I read a lot of prospecting books and, best ways to cold call and books about sales. And then I tried to learn the ins and out of the industry. But the first year, the first 2 years were brutal. It was very uncomfortable. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no confidence in what I was selling because I didn't really even know the ins and outs of the service I could provide. It was a lot. I'm not going to lie. There were definitely times where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what did I get myself into? But for some reason, I always stuck with it. I'm very thankful I did. But I mean, Jeff, you asked what the first deal I was. It was like a 900 square foot deal in a tiny little office building. But the client that I represented has ended up being like a lifelong friend. We have breakfast once a month. So, I mean, it's crazy the relationships that you make and how quickly it can go from 0 to 100.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I think it goes to show that it's a testament to obviously your commitment to the industry and the fact that everyone always says the first few years are brutal. I mean, it's not
Brutal.
it's not an industry where you think you're gonna make it big in 6 months or a year. It's just not gonna happen. It's slow and it's gonna take a lot of effort. You're gonna put in a lot of effort in the beginning, and you're not gonna get a requisite amount of response as a result. You're gonna be beating your head against the wall, and it's gonna take you a few years to really get going. But I mean, I think it's one of those industries that rewards those individuals who commit to it and then just go for it. And over time, it'll definitely build up in that front. So you referenced some of the challenges. Obviously, COVID was a very unique situation, and being in the office space, I'm sure that was just a gut punch for sure. I started similar to you. I started in July of 2019. And so I was starting to build a little bit of momentum, and then March hit, and they're just like, yep, we're shutting everything down. And all my clients were like, no, we're not doing anything because we don't know what's going on. Like, I don't blame them. I wasn't going to say, oh my gosh, you need to do this. No, I mean, we had no idea what was happening. And so as far as you had mentioned the fact that you were reading a lot and starting to really familiarize yourself with the process of being a reputable professional. I guess, could you share some of the things that I guess you read and maybe what was most valuable to you in that period of time?
Yeah, so I think as a commercial real estate brokerage or broker, so the more brokerage side of the business, it is very sales heavy. At the end of the day, you're basically a salesperson. Mm-hmm. So selling, it's not comfortable and it's not easy. And I think people kind of go into it with one idea, and then the second they make their first cold call, they're like, whoa, that was not what I expected. So during that time, I tried to familiarize myself with how to cold call and like what to say and like how many times you really have to reach out to a person before you get some type of response, and who your prospect is and when to remove a prospect. And I think that that part of the business is something that sometimes people overlook, but it is a really important aspect of the business. And then, I mean, I also just use that time to go through like old files and read leases and see like what people would redline and how to draft a request for proposal. Just the little things that I could do, I just tried to learn as well as I could. So when the time came, it was time to go. Another thing was I built my prospect list. So I used that time to like build who I was going to call and what I was going to say and who they were. So then when it was time to call, it was off to the races.
Absolutely. No, that's some great advice. And I think you were proactive about that approach because, I'm sure a lot of people were just kind of sitting at home and saying, oh, well, nothing's happening, so I'm just going to sit on my laurels. But, again, it takes that type of individual who says, look, maybe this isn't happening right now, but I need to be ready so that once the opportunities do present themselves, you can take advantage of them. So
right. And I mean, being in a 100% commission job, you kind of get kicked in the butt, whether you like it or
not. It is a good motivator for sure. Yeah. I mean, no doubt.
You eat what you kill, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I want to point, it is. I wanted to point it out that, you being 3.5 years in, the word earlier that Raphael, I think, was trying to say was grit, in
Mhm.
my opinion. I mean, it takes a lot to sit there and look and see that, oh, well, my bank account's not looking too great. What am I going to do?
Right.
Can I pay all my bills? Like
It's
it's a
entrepreneurship.
grit.
It's
Yeah. I
truly
mean,
it's truly entrepreneurship. And so that's why I think, this particular profession is one where, it's most related to your clients. Like if they're entrepreneurs, like what they go through because you're
Right.
self-employed. You're your own business person. You're generating business for yourself and you have to manage your business. And so, again, I think it's a very, very much a skill set that you develop over time. So
There's a double-edged sword to the uncapped income
hmm
potential because there's also the potential to make no income.
hmm absolutely.
definitely. So I was kind of curious, because being a lady in the commercial real estate, I mean, there's a very, very small percentage in commercial real estate. So I'm just curious, like does that help, and do you go back to like um your clientele or your old friends and such, and leverage that relationship? Because I know you said one of them, your first deal, that you were lifetime friends. So I'm just kind of curious, like what the typical clientele looks like for you now
Yeah.
specifically. Um, and then, and I kind of want to touch also on like how hard has it been being a lady in the
Yeah,
industry?
no, I know exactly what you're asking. So
Yeah.
I personally think I can use it to my advantage. I mean, there's not a lot of females in the industry at all. And at the end of the day, our world is slightly changing. It's it it's more important to have females on teams and females on pitches, and there's starting to be more female CEOs, and it's becoming more common. So personally, I think if you can be the person in the space, there's not a lot of females. So if you can be the one that they want to go to every time there's a deal, or like every time they need to bring a girl on a pitch, like be that person. And honestly, people are so used to the male guy cold callers. So CEOs they're just used to it. So I mean, it is a little bit different being able to add a little bit of a feminine touch. But no, I don't think it's been a disadvantage to me at all. I mean, I think if anything, it's been an advantage, but you just have to figure out how to use it to your advantage. Because at first, people just thought I was young and dumb, and I, it was hard. You have to have the right support, but I mean, if you do, the sky's the limit. And then in terms of my clients, I do prospect female decision makers, and then I mean, I also just run into females at events and stuff. So, you know, but I mean, I also have a lot of male clients, but overall, I mean, it hasn't been a disadvantage really at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're involved with crew, is that correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
we just started a crew chapter locally. One of the agents in our office, she was actually the founding president. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to
Oh,
see.
that's amazing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a phenomenal organization. I'm glad we actually have one locally here. And again, I think what it goes to show is whenever we look to industries, a lot of times, at least this is how I was, I kind of look to people who are kind of similar to me to kind of aspire to something. And
Right.
so I think the fact that you're doing what you're doing and you're putting yourself out there is very beneficial for other people that come and follow suit because in my opinion, being a leader requires you to step out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there and
Right.
you're willing to do that, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, when people ask me this question, I'm always like, just use it to your advantage. Like, there's
Mhm.
not that many, so it's easier to stand out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And you showcase that it's not about, being a male or a female. It's about can you execute? I mean,
Right.
that's what people care about. Like if you're your client, I don't care, what your color creed is,
Mhm.
where your background is. It's like, can you
Exactly.
deliver the results? If you can, great. Let's get it done.
Right. No, exactly. And that's what I've realized. Like,
Hmm
it's all about results.
Exactly. Awesome. So one thing I'm kind of curious about is, obviously we found ourselves in a very interesting situation, obviously post-COVID, especially in the office market, it's definitely been in flux. I'm of the belief that it's going to bounce back. I think anytime there's a big pullback, I think there's overreaction that occurs, but you're starting to see some very large employers say, hey, we're going to have more time in the office because they realize that there's a huge amount of value in having your team centralized in one location. And obviously from a management and team building perspective, it's invaluable. But I was kind of curious if you could share, some of the insights that you've garnered as far as, our current economic environment and where you see that, going forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm fortunate to be in Dallas. I think COVID pushed people in a lot of different markets to Dallas. We've had a lot of companies from California relocate. We've had a lot of companies from Chicago relocate, New York, all the major cities. We've had a good amount of people relocate to Dallas and Austin. So leasing activity here is very strong. People are leasing space. That said, they're leasing a lot less. I think office space will always be important. I think you kind of have to have it for culture. Without an office, it's just you talking to a screen all day. It's hard to build culture that way. So I think there's always going to be office footprints. I do think hybrid work model is here to stay, but we've seen a huge flight to quality. So all of our clients who might have been in Class B buildings or Class A minus, they're going to Class A, Class AA, but they're occupying a lot less space. So, I mean, they're able to keep their overhead, I mean, pretty consistent, if not less than what they were paying, and they have nice space that their employees want to go to. We're also seeing that space is becoming a lot more collaborative. You really don't have the private offices anymore. I can't tell you the last time I had a client that really wanted like a private office heavy space. But right now, employees are kind of ruling the employers in terms of where they work and when they work, because it's the norm to work from home. I think there will be a shift in that. And I think eventually the employers will be in charge of the employees and say, if you want to work here, you have to come to the office. So I really do think we're going to be back there. I just don't know when it will be, but I see leasing activity in office space rising, and I think it's going to continue to rise.
Absolutely. And then you'd mentioned that shrinking of the footprint. I do a lot in the retail side here in Louisville, and retail has been shrinking its footprint for many years as well. And I think what they're really focusing on, over time is the consumer experience and like, obviously drive-throughs and just being able to create an environment where people can come in, get out quickly. And that's just evolution of consumer trends. And obviously on the office side, it seems to be similar, where hybrid work's becoming a lot more prevalent, as it's kind of forced, but it was already kind of, again, it was something that, had been being talked about pre-COVID. I think COVID just accelerated the timeline by quite a bit.
And so one thing that I saw recently was that the Container Store was shrinking quite a bit of their retail footprints. So you're right. We're seeing it all over the place, except industrial. Industrial is
like bigger the better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it was super interesting too, because obviously different cities are unique. I mean, obviously in Dallas, you guys are so expansive. I mean, you guys have so much product all across the city, and I'm sure there's different hubs for different types of product. And here in Louisville, I mean, we've got, legacy industrial parks that have, functionally obsolescent, facilities that were more focused towards manufacturing or, some other use that maybe isn't logistics heavy. And then you start seeing newer product being built on the east side of the city. That's those massive warehouses, 30+ foot ceilings. And that's kind of the wave of the future, quote unquote. But again, it's interesting to see how commercial real estate is such a living and breathing entity, just like always shifting and always changing. And we always get a bad rap because it's like, the way you do business has been the same for many years. It's like, well, actually it's shifted a lot. It's just slow moving, right? It just where things happen in residential, shifts a lot quicker. Maybe in commercial, it's lagged behind by 2x, 3x, but still it's changing.
It does change.
Earlier, you were speaking of everyone coming to Dallas from LA, Chicago, New York. I'm just curious, like, on your opinion, what makes Dallas the go-to city for these larger companies? Is there is it population growth? There's a lot more workers, or what's?
No, that's a good question. So Dallas and Austin, they have grown pretty quickly and they've become very nice cities. That said, they are a lot more inexpensive than a lot of your super large cities. So, I mean, the cost to live in Dallas is much less than it would cost to live in California. So, I think the first thing is how cheap you can realistically live here if you want to. There's also a ton of talent to pull from here. We've had a lot of people relocating. We've had a lot of talent come. And I mean, I think Texas and Dallas specifically have always been a pretty heavy talent hub. And then it's easy to do business in Texas. It really is. It's a lot easier to run a business. It's less money to run a business. So overall, I just think and great public education systems. So there's a lot of things that I think make Dallas very attractive, but I think the number one thing is you can just live here for a lot less money.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the talent hub. I mean, you guys got so many universities relatively close by,
We have SMU, we have Texas Tech, we have A&M, we have UT. Like there's so many colleges in Texas. And it's becoming more cool. People used to be like, do you ride a horse to school? And I think people are finally starting to realize that, like, we kind of do have a cool city. But no, I love it. And there's buildings that are popping out of the ground every single time I drive to work. It really is crazy how quickly it's growing, and all the plans of new buildings that are to come in the next couple of years.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of buddies that live in Dallas. I went to Arizona State, and so I have a lot of friends that went to, they went to Dallas. They're in Phoenix still. A lot of them are in Phoenix and in California and really all over the Southwest. So
it's a fun spot. It really is.
Absolutely. So
I heard ASU was also really fun though too. So
it was, it was a great time. It really was. But I was there. I went to school in Southern Arizona, so I was in state going to ASU. But it was a great time for sure. One thing I was kind of curious about, and this is something we like to ask all our guests, is we're all pretty voracious readers. I'm big in Audible. Every time I'm driving somewhere, I got to throw in an Audible book. And we always like to ask our guests, what is one of the more impactful books you've ever read? And it doesn't have to necessarily be commercial real estate focused. It can just be, personal development and growth, or whatever you feel like would be most appropriate.
I would say the book Good to Great.
Ooh, that's good.
I really love that book. Our managing principal here basically runs the business, our Dallas office here, with the mentality of good is the biggest enemy of great. And the book just really goes in depth about how people are okay with being good, so they never strive to be great. And just making you more aware of the fact that things can be good, but if you push harder and you're a little bit more resilient, they can be great. So I really do love that book. And then in terms of business development and like prospecting, I love the book Fanatical Prospecting. It just gives you a really good blueprint to how to go about the prospecting process.
Oh, those are great. Those are two phenomenal books, and especially Good to Great. I mean, like you said, I think it's a mindset, because a lot of times and especially early on in your career, things aren't good. Or they're not good at all. And then you get a little bit of success, and I'm still at the middling stages of trying to build up my business and everything. But you could feel somewhat comfortable to rest on your laurels, because at least now you've made it out of the murky swamp. But in reality, if you push through that and continue to have that mindset of excellence, I mean, that's really where you see people 10, 20 years down the road, and they're top of their industry doing massive deals and maybe
No,
even getting
exactly.
into.
I think it's a book that every person should read, probably a few times.
Definitely.
Well, as we start kind of rounding it out, Hannah, I just want to say we really appreciate you telling us just the story about your local market. It's been great. But one of the things that we will ask people is we have a CRE treasure chest, which is a repository of things that we ask our people to come on the podcast to share with our audience. Is there something that you would like to share with the audience today?
And is it just like anything?
It could be a PDF. Some people did PDFs. They've done case studies. They've done ebooks.
Or
Someone wrote,
something helpful that you found
yeah,
in your career and you want to just share. Because we usually, what we like to do is we put it at the end of our, at the, there's a separate page that people can access for each episode and such. So
That's a good question. I am sure that I have something that I
sure.
could share.
And we'll take offline. We'll go ahead and talk about it offline too. And you guys you have the opportunity to kind of share what you think is most valuable. So it'll be a mystery item. How about that?
Yeah, it's a mystery for now, but there's going to be something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, we greatly appreciate your time. I was really nice to be able to learn a little bit more about your story and some of the insights you shared about your journey. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who gain some value from it. So one thing we like to do is we like to ask if people want to learn more about your story. Maybe they're business owners or investors in the Dallas area and they need someone to help them with whatever needs they have. I guess, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so are there any ways that we can can you post links after the show?
Absolutely. So we
my
record this. We record this in a podcast format and also in YouTube video. So
Okay, so my name is spelled a little weird. People always butcher it because there's no H at the end, but it's Hanna and then dot Henley, Henley at cushwake.com. And then I've been trying to be better about my LinkedIn presence. So I'm trying to post more, but I'll give y'all that link. I don't know. I think it's just my name. And then I also need to be better about posting on my Instagram. So maybe this will push me to start doing that more. Out of curiosity, do y'all post on like an Instagram for your businesses?
So I do a little bit, but I'm not the best on Instagram. I must admit, I do a lot on YouTube. So I've done
YouTube,
like
okay.
short reels and stuff like that. I probably should do more on Instagram because I do a lot of retail. So I know retail's. I have some friends out in other places that are brokers that I've interviewed, and they say Instagram for retail has been awesome.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, that's an avenue I've been needing to go to. So eventually I'm going to try and make my socials more up to par, but for now my email is probably the best place to reach me.
Absolutely. And we'll go ahead and include all that in the show notes. So if you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, obviously, it'll be in the description. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, again, it'll be in the description so you guys can access Hannah's contact information. So Hanna, again, thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review. It does make a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. Along with that, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a 5 or like and subscribe, I should say. It really does make an impact with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message. So thanks again so much for stopping by, and we'll see you all next time.
This was fun. I'm glad I got to talk to y'all.
Oh, absolutely. See you guys.